Good morning, good morning, and here we are again. Welcome to Diary of a Cocaine Addict. I am your host, Sarah Ibrahim, the Recovery Witch, and this is my podcast. And so this show has really been born from a place of wanting to turn my pain into power. So those of you that are new to my world, a massive, massive, particularly warm welcome to you. I suffered for the best part of 20 years with a massive addiction that just basically took over my entire adult life. First starting off with ecstasy and then moving into cocaine most recently. And truthfully, I didn't realize how powerless that I was to it until I tried to stop. And then I realized, okay, this is not recreational. You're completely deluded. And so I embarked on a journey of recovery. And I am now 13 months clean, almost 14 months. Wow, that's flown by. Um, and decided to bring this podcast to life because I've learned so much and I've met so many people along the way who have got wisdom that they can share with us. And I really wanted to just create a platform whereby I could share hope and inspiration and resources and really bring a holistic view of addiction to the stage because I think there's so much stigma out there. And there's so many people that are fighting a silent battle that somebody like myself who can and will speak up for the masses makes a massive difference. Now, it's really important to me that this show informs, that it educates, and that it helps, right? And so, on that basis, I know that I don't have the answers to everything. Maybe I like to think I do sometimes, but I really don't. And so, for that reason, every other week, I invite some amazing humans onto this show with me to share with us their own perspective. You know, what is it that they do? How have they been affected by addiction? Now, it may not be that they themselves have had an addiction. It may be they've been surrounded by addicts. It may be that they treat addicts in their work and so on. So, without further ado, today I am joined by the lovely Catherine, who is going to introduce herself. Tell us, who are you, Catherine?
Oh, thanks, Sarah. So I'm Catherine Phillips, and I'm a family support coach, so a life coach specialising in helping people who have been affected by an addict in their life, by the behaviour of the addict. So they might still be with the addict, they might be a partner, or a parent or a child of an addict, and they might be sort of affected by their behaviour or have been in the past. So it might have left them with some issues as well. So that's the work that I'm doing.
So this is the thing, isn't it? It's not just the addicts whose life is affected, is it? It's those around them. And you
Yeah,
know that better than anybody, don't you? Well, I
yeah.
don't say better than anybody, but you have got your own experiences. So would you like to share, with the listeners how this has affected your own life?
Yeah, so I've been married twice, and both times been married to an addict. Both of them addicted to alcohol, and so obviously big impact on sort of everything as that escalated in both cases, and got worse. I've got two children, grown up now, but by the first from the first marriage, and so obviously they were young when I left their father, and then the next relationship I got into, I didn't realise obviously at the time, but he was an addict as well. So lots and lots of different behaviours that have impacted me and also the girls as well, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. That must be tough. So, like for me, obviously, I've been in a position of addict versus the one that's been surrounded by it. So, maybe if you would be willing to share with us, some of the things that you've noticed as common kind of behaviors that you were on the ends of, or ways that you have managed to deal with those behaviors.
Yes, absolutely. So lots of different behaviours, and I'd say everyone suffering from an addiction, their behaviour is very different, but certainly brings out perhaps some narcissistic behaviour sometimes, where they're sort of just looking at their own addiction and not really considering other people around them. Um, first person I was married to, he was probably addicted to lots of things, so other things including drugs, I'd say, as well. um, and very narcissistic sort of personality, so very much sort of not caring about anything, not considering that he had children and a responsibility to them, no payment for them at any time. And the second marriage I was in, he displayed some very strange behaviours, where we had to sort of end up calling the police a couple of times, well, a few times actually. Getting very, very drunk, shouting and screaming through the night, doing strange things like entering kids' bedrooms and things like that when he shouldn't have been, shouting from the sofa, all sorts of strange things, even impacting on the animals, on our pets, getting pets out of their bearded dragons. He got them out in the middle of the night, frightening the dogs. Children not able to sleep when they had exams the next day, all sorts of things. And also my first husband became violent as well, kind of, I suppose, during the sort of peak of his addiction, where he was just so angry and, difficult behaviours all around, really. So all sorts.
Sounds really heavy duty, Catherine. So how did that impact, at the time, how did that impact your own mental health?
I'm quite a strong person, and I think I've gone through quite a lot of different things in my life, so I've learned to be. But probably like feeling like you're living on a knife edge a bit. My self-esteem's probably stayed relatively intact, but I think it very often has a big impact on someone's self-esteem. Definitely that, for those feelings of embarrassment, you sort of avoid social situations with the addict because things might escalate. So we had a good group of friends, which it just became quite embarrassing, so I'd sort of avoid going out with them. Just feeling very sad because you sort of lose that relationship that you had. Feeling worried, panicky.
Yeah.
All the time that they might fall over, hit their head, break their ribs.
Yeah.
That constant worry, really. You'll never really, and you don't know what you're going to come home to.
So did you try and speak to either of these partners about it at the time, and how did that go over?
Yeah, they both admitted to addictions eventually. They both admitted that they had a problem and they were an addict. My first husband, eventually, it took some years, but eventually he was crying and saying, I need help and everything. But when I got him help, I think he attended a centre once, talked to them, and then told me he didn't need any further help. And he's never really sought help since, despite he's had an awful lot of physical problems as well. His body's really broken down. And my second husband, he went to rehab eventually for a month. Only managed to stay in recovery for about 10 days. And he went back some months later, but left after a week. Said he'd had enough.
So not success stories in either case.
No, they're not. But no, they're not. And I know the first one's still drinking. He's had a lot of operations and things, but still drinking. And the second one, last time I spoke to him, told me he was sober, but obviously I'm not really in touch. So I know he wasn't sober for the first sort of 2.5 years after we split up. So that was 3 years ago. So I don't think either a success story. They could do with you, Sarah.
Absolutely. Well, you've got my number, girlie. So tell me, obviously with children at the time present and around this stuff, that must have been double difficult for you with the added worry of, how was it for them? Tell us, what was your experience in that scenario? What were your worries about the children? What was the actual effect on the girls? How did you manage it?
They have experienced a lot from from their father. Ended up with a suicide attempt, and which he said was their fault for not contacting him enough, which is ludicrous because he was the father and he hadn't really displayed himself as a good one in any way. So I suppose that's left them with sort of worries about him. My older daughter with some sort of guilt that she has to message him and phone him every day or so to make sure he's all like constant abuse from him. And the second one definitely left them both with severe anxiety, possibly from a mixture of the two, but they both had very bad anxiety. They're both on medication. Although they're both doing really well now and working and, really lovely people. So they've got through it, but it's definitely left them with some issues. And I think bringing children up, you just worry so much about them. And as a parent, you feel really guilty, actually, that you're putting them through it. I probably should have got out quicker than I did, but I've really wanted to help them recover.
Yeah, absolutely. And that must have strengthened your own bond with them. That you must have been kind of their ally, their protector, their, the good in it all.
I hope so, and we are really, really close actually. So yeah, they're 21 and 19 now, and we are
Yeah.
very. But it's definitely left me with some feelings of guilt that I put them through those
Yeah.
situations. Um,
Yes.
and I wonder whether it's left them possibly with some feelings of like, why did she not leave sooner? But financially, that would have been very difficult. I'm self-employed and
Mm-hmm.
can be tricky, and lots of things to consider, isn't there, before you leave a marriage?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, they're
Especially with children.
yeah, they're strong. They're strong girls now.
Yeah. So tell us, I mean, these are not success stories as we've established. However, there obviously is some good in there because A, you're here to tell the tale. B, your girls are thriving. And C, you are now working with people that have maybe been through the same sort of stuff. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. And to be honest, I'm a very sort of positive, upbeat person. So I believe, there's always possibility for a happy ending, and hopefully at least one of them might end up recovering at some stage. And yeah, I'm working as a coach for people who've been affected by the behaviour of an addict, whether that's ongoing, and they might be there helping them support their recovery. It might be that they're there whilst that addiction is still sort of rife, or it might be after they're no longer in that situation, but it's
Mm,
with a lot of issues or some issues, and they want some help moving forward. But I believe, any situation, it makes you stronger. You grow from that and understand. And having been around people with addictions, I think it's very sad. It's very hard to recover from. I know, and
mm,
very strong, determined to get through that. So, but it does impact all the people around them, and therefore, I, I would have liked to have somebody like myself there to support me, because
mhm.
you have your friends and family and you talk to your friends and family, but if they haven't gone through it, they just want you out. They just want you out of that situation, and also, you feel like you don't want to burden your friends and family too much. Whereas if someone's a coach, they can really kind of help you negotiate your way out. And
Yeah.
I'm feel and empathic, so I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm just there as a support.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I know you and I spoke the other day, didn't we? Because actually what we realized is between the two of us, we've got it all covered. So I help the addict or the person in recovery, and you are there supporting the rest of the family. And I think, it's really important to have that holistic approach because everybody is in it, aren't they? Like I know for me, there was a lot of fractured relationships in my wake. And the truth is, Catherine, that I'm still quite early in my recovery, only 13, 14 months in. And, sometimes my mum says to me things like, oh, you're always just thinking of yourself. But it has to be like that. I have to put my recovery first. And so it's a really difficult balance to strike in order to not be a selfish cow, which I have been for many, many years because I've been run by this addiction, but also to maintain and honor the fact that my recovery needs to be central in everything that I do. And so I find that actually really difficult at times. So I wonder if you could maybe throw some light on how a person like myself might be able to kind of pave the way, make it a little easier for the family, if that's in the scope of kind of your knowledge.
I think, yeah, I think that the family or anyone supporting someone who's in recovery has to understand that their recovery is centered to them. Uh,
Mm,
and that has to come first. And if that means them avoiding certain situations, it might be a family do or something where ordinarily they'd be expected to be there, but they decide not to be because of their addiction. They don't want to put themselves in a situation. I think anyone supporting them, the family and friends supporting them, would have to be understanding that their recovery must come first. But equally, they need to be very aware of the fact that only they can decide their own fate, and only the person with the addiction or in recovery is in charge of their own life. And so whilst you feel impacted in every way by the decisions of someone, you know, whether they continue their recovery or whether they start their addiction again.
Mm.
Only control your own self, and you can control, like, look, considering the rest of your family support
Mhm.
that person, but you can't make decisions for them. And it is really difficult because, as you say, you have to kind of be quite selfish, and
Mm.
I think on both parts, really, because the
Yeah.
person around them has to consider the rest of the family and themselves and their own well-being too. And if
Yeah.
that they can't be in physically together for a while, then
Mhm.
some might be the right path.
So here's a question. At what point does the family start to share with the addict or the person in recovery, I should say, about the impact that it's had on them? You know, because my mum is very much like, look, I have been under this stuff for like 20 years. You don't even know what I've been through. And part of me, again, being really honest, part of me is shit scared. Yeah. I'm like, I just don't feel like I can handle being told how bad I was. You know, that has got potential to undo everything.
Mm.
And that's maybe too dramatic of a statement because I'm past that now. But still, the thought of her, you know, just unpouring all of this stuff of like just a list of all the wrongs that I've done. And I know that it wouldn't be like that, but in my head, this is what I'm making it into. And I'm like, I can't hear it right now. Yeah. But that's unfair to her. You know, she's carried this stuff around for so many freaking years. And so, you know, at what point do you start to say, look, okay, you know what? I'm here to help you and I always will. But there's another side to this. And I would really like you for you to be privy to it in order to, you know, be able to help me too.
I just I just feel like possibly the people around the addict would be better off talking to somebody like me outside the situation to offload, rather than, you know, as you know, it's a really hard time, particularly early in your recovery,
Mm,
into the first few years. And even after that, things, you know, every difficult situation is a potential sort of trigger. And therefore, whilst you'd want to offload possibly and say, look how awful it's been, in a way, they weren't themselves when they were suffering from the addiction. And if you are going to continue to support them, or if it's a partner, stay with them, you need
hmm.
to learn to kind of move on and understand you've
Yeah.
happened, but you won't accept it happens again, perhaps,
Yeah.
and offload to somebody outside the.
Hmm. I agree, actually. And again, this is part of why the work that you do is so important. You know, providing that space, isn't it, for the family to dive into how it's affected them and impacted them. Because I think sometimes we don't realize, do we? Actually, you think maybe, oh, I'm okay. But there can be some anxiety around, well, look, am I enough to support this person? Am I doing the right thing? Should I be referring to them to a professional? Like, you know, and that's where you step in, isn't it? And be able to help them to guide and make decisions that are going to empower the family. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. To have a bit of accountability for considering themselves, as
Mm,
how they're moving their own life on, but also, yeah, just to kind of offload and a bit of guidance. So I'm never
mm,
going to tell you what to do, but I think in life, having a support, and a guide is really powerful. And I'm a coach, but sort of a mentor in a way as well for somebody, if that's what they want to kind of move along
yeah,
with their life, and sort
yeah,
of either supporting that person in recovery, or deciding, you know, or just moving their own life along. But
yeah.
yeah.
So I think you and I kind of come from the same place as well, in that, you know, just this week actually, a lady reached out to me this week, Monday, I think, and we had a conversation for the very first time about this kind of stuff, you know, what was troubling her and so on. And then the next day, we jumped on a Zoom call and we had a chat for an hour or so. And then the third day, she signed up with me as one of my clients as a recovery coach. Within those 48 hours, Catherine, this person had transformed the way that they think from the ground up. And I was just like, this is actually really incredible how fast change can take place if you are willing to go there, right? So she had had an open and frank conversation with her partner, which 2 days before she was terrified to do. She had all of these stories, about how it was going to unfold and what the repercussions were going to be, and so on and so on. She had got to a point where she was like, oh my gosh, you've just helped me to identify the root cause of this. Like, I can't believe that I hadn't thought of this, and I think for me, as somebody that's come from that place as well, it's so, it fills my heart so much to be able to use those experiences that I had to be able to help somebody else. And I know that you are in that place as well, which I just think is amazing. And that also, our services, both you and I, are not kind of a tick box exercise at all. Like, it's tailored to each individual person based on whatever it is that they need. It's not a set of, okay, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do that, then we're, and that's it. It's very much a personalized service based on what we're being told, isn't it?
Absolutely, and everybody is in such a different situation, aren't there? There's some commonalities, but everyone is different, and that's why I just think a personalised service where they can book some sessions or even one session to talk things through. As you say, change can be quite instant. Sometimes somebody understanding and just helping them realise, and it can change everything. And even just to make somebody stronger and feel empowered and able to kind of move their life on, from the point of view of the addict or the person who's been supporting them or affected by them. I just think it can make all the difference, can't it? I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah. It never fails to surprise me how, like, just one sentence that you say or I say can have the power to transform somebody's entire thinking and belief system just by simply joining a dot, or joining two dots, I should say, that they hadn't previously seen. Like, I was having a conversation with this person the other day, and she said something, and I was like, oh, maybe this is, maybe there's something in that. And she was like, oh my God, that is it. And I was like, oh, wasn't even trying to do that. But hell yeah, that works. And so it's really, I'm fascinated by the human psyche and the reason why we do the things that we do and why we act out the way that we do and how we interpret things differently from each other. And I just, I love the fact that we get to experience the world like this. Both you and I have come from opposite sides of the fence, in this experience, but we're both traveling the same journey together. And I love that we've got this connection where we can, cover the whole family between us. I absolutely love that because I just do think it's invaluable. It's all fine and well me speaking to the person who's wanting to quit or me speaking to the person who has just quit and wanting to rebuild their lives. But there are more people that are affected by this that do need support. And I wonder if, that enough people know that support is out there, Catherine.
I feel like they don't. And because the situations I was in, neither time I was offered any sort of help. I
Yeah.
didn't anyone else going through anything like it. And I just felt like it was just such a difficult thing to negotiate. And I agree. I think it's amazing that between us we can provide support to the person who is in recovery and also to the people supporting them, because between those two things they have a far better chance of, number one, recovering, and being understood and kind of supported through that recovery by people being able to kind of let off their own feelings, somewhere where they're not judged and can kind of concentrate on themselves some of the time. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the fact that we can, between us, really help people.
Yeah. And I think as well, you just hit the nail on the head, providing that safe space for people whereby they can just be met where they're at. Neither you nor I are going, right, you got to do this and you need to do that and X, Y, Z thing. It's not prescriptive. It literally is, okay, here's your space. How can we help today? What would you like to get out of this? Feel free to express yourself in the way that you need and know that it's okay. You don't have to pretend to be something or not be something. We're here to be real and have an open and honest conversation. And just that one thing can go such a long way. Even if you literally just sat there silently, Catherine, and just held the space for the family to go like, they can go away from that feeling so much better, can't they?
Absolutely. And yeah, sometimes people do need you to just listen. And I think as a coach, it is about people finding their own answers a lot of the time, but
Mm,
just being there listening and kind of guiding them and reflecting back what they've said, because the answers are often there for them
yeah,
when you sort of show them that. But it is that feeling of being so alone, isn't it?
that's
When
it.
or when you're supporting someone who is.
So when you were going through this with your either of your husbands, take your pick, right? Was there a sense of like I hear that you felt alone, right? But was there a sense that you didn't even kind of try and see if there was some support out there because there was a sense of maybe, well, how can I say that I've got a problem that I need help when actually, it's him that needs it? Like, it's almost as if you were secondary. Was there an element of that in it at all?
Yeah, it never occurred to me to kind of reach out and look for that help, because my
Yeah.
focus was on protecting the kids as much as I could,
Mm,
trying to find him help, especially the second time round. The first time round, I feel like he wasn't really interested in getting help particularly.
yeah. Yeah.
Second, he definitely was, and so my focus was on that. But even, going to rehab for a month, there wasn't any focus on supporting the family so they could better support somebody's.
Mm,
No mention of that. And obviously there was AA meetings, but again, no mention of families.
yeah.
I just didn't feel that support was out there really, and
Yeah.
so visibly out there, and something that I came across.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited that we've had this conversation, not just today, but I mean, like, just in general, because I think the more and more that people become aware of the fact that, they're not alone and that they're not the first one to go through it, somebody's going to have to say something pretty astounding to shock either you or me, um, given our own experiences. And that again creates that safe space to go, actually, do you know what? This has been going on, or I'm struggling with that. And know that there's no, we're not going to go away from it thinking, oh my God, that person, blah, 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 because who are we to judge? We've both been there, albeit in different capacities. So tell me just one last thing, Catherine, before we close up this show. Like, how would you advise a family to kind of go about healing fractured relationships that have been caused through addiction?
I think they need to offload their feelings, so they can kind of think more clearly about how to how they want to progress and move forward, really. Because I think there's often a lot of anger when you've been around somebody who's restricted your life and made you worry and panic. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that you need to be able to offload, to think clearly. And if you want that person still in your life, you've got to learn to accept that that's happened and be able to move on. I've got a confidential Facebook group, very small group at the moment, but for anybody who's not ready for coaching and just wants to kind of be somewhere in a safe space where they can offload a little bit. But I personally think for people on both sides of the fence, that coaching is what's going to make the difference, because it's also tailored.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, where can people find you? What's your Facebook group called? How can people reach you if they want to, etc.?
It's called a supportive group for anyone affected by the behaviour of an addict. So
It's called what?
it's quite a long name, actually. Let me just double
We
check.
can share the link as well
Oh,
when we put
yeah.
put the post out.
Yeah, it's a confidential group, so nobody else can kind of enter it without
Okay.
double checking. And I'm Catherine Pop on Facebook, so they can find me on there, and I do quite a few posts on there about just about what I've gone through and how I can help.
Mm,
If people just reach out to me, we can always have a complimentary Zoom so they can see what they think and whether they think I'm someone that can help them. Uh,
absolutely. And of course, we just want to encourage the listeners, if you know anybody that might need help from either side of this, as the addict recovery or as the family, both Catherine and I are here to say, look, whatever the situation might look like right now, it's not absolutely not your final destination. Look at Catherine, look at me. We've both come through it, and we're both now using that experience to help and empower others, right? So you've basically got somebody that understands it all right here. So don't hesitate. You know, there is absolutely zero need to suffer alone. Catherine suffered when she was suffering alone. I fought a silent battle for a long time on my own. You know, these are the conditions under which addiction thrives, is in isolation, right? And the more that we talk about it, the more that we bring it out into the open. And I get that it can be frightening because when you talk about it, it makes it real, right? But hear this, okay? When you are standing on a place of the truth, it's the most solid foundation that you will ever stand on. And calling in help and support is a gift, not just to yourself, but to your family, right? Because you don't have to go it alone. And there are people that understand and that are willing to help. So, on that note, Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today and being so open and honest with your story. When this post goes out, I will put the links for your Facebook page. And if anybody wants to join your Facebook group, they can reach out to you directly and you can see if they're the right fit or not, or whatever you want to do. And in the meantime, if you want to contact me, please do go ahead and do so. I'm at the Recovery Witch 2911 at gmail.com, or you'll find me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram as the Recovery Witch. So do go ahead and connect with me, and go ahead and connect with Catherine. She's an amazing human doing amazing work. Thank you so much, my darling. What an amazing chat. And we'll see you next week, folks, for another episode of Diary of a Cocaine Addict. Adios.
Thanks, Sarah.